11 dropped. I am super excited because this has become my favorite Disney Plus show. The quality is just incredible. But I'm going to talk about that and more with a whole cast of some awesome people. And we're going to do that right now on the high ground. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the High Ground podcast. Excited to get y'all on to dive into Andor. We're going to have another person joining, just a little bit late of a joiner, but General Skivas will be with us shortly. To get started, though, I would like to let's go around the room, and I'll have y'all introduce yourselves. So let me know who you are, where we can find your awesome content, and if you could have I'm going to make you choose between a pet and a droid. So you can only have one, and if you choose droid, which droid? And if you choose pet, what animal are you picking? I'll go to Casey first.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Casey, or SWAcer Swacer on TikTok. And if I had to pick between a pet or a droid in Star Wars, the pets are cute, but I think I'd have to go with the droid because they're like a whole functioning companion, and they got a lot of usefulness to them, and probably an astromech.
Okay, an astromech. And any particular model? Like if you could have one, you know who you would choose?
Probably an R series astromech, similar to R2.
Awesome. All right. And how about you, Jeff? Who are you? Where can we find your awesome content? And droid or pet? And which droid or pet?
You got it. My name's Jeff. You can find me at JB the Jedi on TikTok, but then Jeff Bull Tech, like on all the other socials. And my buddy and I co-host a show called another Star Wars show, which is super fun to be here sharing this too. The Kessel Chat on YouTube. So we go live every Thursday at 9 p.m., which is kind of cool. So that's where all my stuff is. And between droid and cat, that's droid and pet, that's hard. But the one that just came to mind immediately was a Loth cat. I want a Loth cat because they're just adorable and feisty, and they remind me of my cat Panda inside. So I'm like, I need a Loth cat like Stuffy to sit and like next to me all the time.
Absolutely. Loth cat's feet kind of freak me out, though. I don't know.
They're like little chicken feet or something.
Yeah.
They're very strange. I don't know why, but I really love it.
And last but certainly not least, we have General Skivas. Where can we find you? And all the same questions. Who are you? Where can we find you? And pet or droid? Which pet or droid?
I am on TikTok and I'm also on Instagram. I use Twitter. And what was the other question? I'm sorry.
If you could have choose between having a pet or a droid, and
I would
which?
choose a pet.
All right, and which one would you choose?
Tauntaun. Definitely.
Nice.
Yeah. I
Okay.
want something that I can try and save on gas.
That's dope. I could just picture. I don't know what you do for work, but I would love to see someone like roll up to work on a Tauntaun.
I'm a dog walker, so I'd just back at the saddle and be like, "Giddy up, come on, let's go."
Awesome, and I love that you came in your Bix cosplay. That's
Yes, of course.
Let's see here. I have I choose pet. I want a Volca. Nice. Obi-Shawn in the chat. Droid BD1, a BD unit would be really cool. Dex and Download wants a protocol droid 100%. And I already know that he wants 114D. I'm just going to bet money on that one. Myself, this was a tough one, but I want to pet Nexu. I know they seem vicious, but I think you might be able to ride a Nexu, at least a short distance. And I think it would. I don't know. Give me a pet Nexu, just a big giant toothy cat that I will not. Unlike the Geonosians, I will not train it to rip off girls' midriffs because that's really weird and specific. I don't know. I don't know how that worked out, but whatever. Anyways, yeah. Now that we kind of know each other, let's just jump into Andor episode 11. How are we feeling overall on Andor? Because I don't think I've been able to talk to any one of you guys on this show yet. So, also I want this to be conversational, so feel free to jump out and just say how you feel. All right, Jeff.
I think it's.
No, please go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been pretty obsessed with it. I didn't think that I was gonna have that much of an interest in it. I am a really big Rogue One fan. I did like Cassian, but he wasn't my favorite character in Rogue One, so I was a little like, purpose of this. So yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised, and obviously they really resonate with me, and yeah, I've loved the show so much so far.
Yeah,
I'm totally with you on that one too. Rogue One, I will say, Rogue One is hands down my favorite Star Wars movie. I mean, the original trilogy, I saw Star Wars when I was 5, so it was like 1984 or something like that. And I love those, like I love them. But Rogue One, is hands down my favorite movie. And this TV show, like Cassian wasn't my favorite character in it, or the main character I think I resonated with, but in this show, and then of course this episode, really getting to see all these characters go through such dramatic changes, even in the course of just a few episodes. The situations they're going through are having such a powerful effect on who they are, and the actors are doing a brilliant job making that come to life. So when you watch it on screen, it hits you. At least for me, it hits every single time, and in so many different ways. I don't know how better to describe it. This show has just been probably some of the best, if not the best TV, not just Star Wars, but just best TV I've ever watched.
Yeah.
I would certainly agree with Jeff. As far as I feel there's a certain level of intensity that each actor brings to their respective characters in this series. Now, I kind of went into the series anticipating getting to know more about Cassie, and I actually was a pretty big fan of his out of Rogue One. But the idea that we would get to dive into the characters like Saw Gerrera and Mon Mothma a little bit more as well, that had my interest, and it just fully took over once I started to see these characters unfold in the series. It's just enthralling. I'm completely captured by not just the performances, but the story that they're telling with each of these characters.
They're weaving them so well, and now we're watching all of these different stories start to converge, and things are going to be really, really interesting. Just a random non sequitur. Obi-Wan says, what were the black and white Lothcat adjacent creatures in episode 1 of Tales of the Jedi? I don't know, but they looked heavily inspired of red pandas, and they were just adorable. And yeah, there might be an argument for me to make one of those my pet as well.
Look like little Tuca dolls almost.
Yeah, I want to spend more time with them. But yeah, jumping into the episode, we kind of start out with it starts out on a cliffhanger.
Literally.
What she did there. What's interesting about that scene to me is how they started the scene. It's not them hanging on the wall or even starting to climb, like you said. It started with a cliffhanger, but if I remember right, I think it even starts kind of in a very intense way with either their bloody hands or their busted feet, and it instantly makes you think, oh my gosh, even though we know they're a moment later we see them hanging from the cliff, we see the ship fly over, but in that moment where you see just that frame tells you so much about what it took for them even to get to that place. And I don't just mean they're running across the planet, but it's almost a metaphor for everything they just went through to get out of that prison and get to that place, starting right there. It's no, this is exactly how it was almost indicative of what the entire episode was going to be like, because you fast forward a bit when you see Bix, and I know we'll get to that in a few minutes. This brief period of time we see Bix in this episode, oh my gosh, I was in tears for her, because but that first frame of the show, I was oh, I didn't realize until later on, oh my gosh, this episode is really going to hurt a lot. I don't mean to laugh, it just does.
But right, it's why pans of 1905, just seeing what the land and waters so far, and it looks like everything is burnt. And then you go into Armenians, I don't know what they're called, but those two fellas that captured Cassian, the way that they're speaking about the Empire and talking about how they're killing making the water toxic, all of this stuff, and really like the span of what the Empire is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, real quick, if you can perhaps go into your audio settings and disable the noise suppression. I think that might be acting as a noise gate and kind of cutting off your bits of what you're saying.
Okay. Is it?
Yeah. But I really loved those two guys though. They just, I don't know. I laughed hysterically. But yeah, let's how about of the overall themes, before we kind of dive into each individual storyline, do you think that there's a common theme? Because every episode there's separate storylines, but they usually all have I'm sorry, that's the echo cancellation. And I think you need that in.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries. I was just like, now I hear myself. Is this how I sound to people? Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry.
Like, is this my voice?
But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Is there a through line between all of these different but connected stories that kind of happen here? Anything pop out at you?
I certainly think that they're just the overall villainous nature of tyranny in all of its forms and oppression, just the way that it weaves in and affects everybody, no matter where you exist in the galaxy or as part of the Empire at large, and just the effect that has on people who are completely innocent, people who are completely just trying to mind their own business. And you look at, like with Kino Loy in the past couple episodes, he thinks that if he just does as he's told and if he just listens and he'll find his way out. And you realize that isn't the case, and that the Empire is just it's out for everyone essentially, and there's nothing you can do except rebel against it.
I like that. Yeah.
For me, wait. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say that the word that came to mind for me in this episode specifically was confrontation, but I don't mean it as in like an aggressive thing between like two people arguing. I mean it in sort of, we're starting to me, at least the last episode, and then this one specifically, we are seeing each of these characters. Mon Mothma was like the shining example of this. Is they're having to confront the reality of their situation more and more. And this episode, I mean, watching Mon Mothma in her apartment was absolutely like she literally says it. She's like, I'm in a lot of trouble, and that's like, there is no other way that she can say it. Like and I think we see that with Luthen when he gets approached by the Imperial ship. Cassian when they get captured, like all these different situations, but each character is having to confront the reality of what's happening in front of them. And I think, at least for me, that's how this episode popped up, is like everybody is really having to confront, oh, this is all really happening. Like we really can't ignore this anymore. Whatever we're going to have to make a decision to either really get into this or do something else. But yeah, I think confrontation is the way that I kind of think about it, at least.
It does feel like everyone is past this point of no return, and they're just kind of trapped in this situation between a rock and a hard place. Because yeah, I mean that's what's happening with Luthen. That's what the discussion was Saw of do we gotta let him go, and kind of the reality of them all needing to be selfish in order to do some of these things. That they have to sacrifice something, and it's something personal and it's painful.
Yeah, it ties into what Luthen said in the last, forced to use the tools of his enemy to defeat them.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that about Luthen specifically, because I think he's like the only character that sort of has accepted who he has to be and who he is. Everybody else, I mean, he's still having to deal with things, but everybody else, we're seeing the like this thought line, or this I guess through line would be the way to say it. This through line of everybody else almost not being ready to accept that yet. Yet he's like, I'm here. Like I kind of gave up my humanity a while ago because this has to be done. And I'm just going to do whatever has to be done. I mean, Saw has even kind of given that up to a degree, but he hasn't, like, he's still, I think fanaticism still comes from the fact that he cares so much. He just goes about it in a very extreme way. But even in that moment when they're interacting with each other, by the end of that moment, Saw finally does kind of come around, like, oh, like, it's not that he didn't see it, but I don't think he saw the real long game until towards the end of that particular scene. I really loved that because it creates a nuance to Saw's character that is often pushed aside. Oftentimes, like, well, he's just the fanatic doing this. It's like, actually, no, that's not really what his character is. But I like seeing that development for him.
Yeah, and his performance is just really, really good, and we get to see him a lot more lucid than he is in in Rogue One. But that paranoia that's like creeping up is really cool as well. But yeah, let's kind of separate the storylines. First let's talk. I mean, I think Andor had the least to do in the episode, so let's just first dive into that. We kind of talked about them hanging off of the cliff. Not sure if anyone made it, and their return to Space Tampa. Yeah, what jumps out at you? That I no longer say Space Miami because Emily told us that was Tampa, and I was like, no, that makes sense.
I remember that.
What do you guys think of Andor and where he's going, and the hard-hitting news that he just heard?
Yeah, I think
that.
Oh, you go. You're good.
Oh no, you can go ahead.
I think that with Andor finally, his mother figure in his life, Marva, no longer being around, and realizing what it was that she had planned to do in the final days of her life, wanting to fight back against the Empire. That's, he's already kind of come around to that to an extent with, helping lead the prison break, and having this better understanding of what the Empire is capable of. He's definitely now about to cross that line where he's going to go full on to, I guess, honor not just Marva, but all the people that the Empire has tarnished.
Yeah. And what were we gonna say?
What I was gonna mention was I really liked that last scene. It was very of the last scene that we have in Rogue One, of course. Just having that really heartfelt music and it almost made me think, like, in Rogue One, in that moment, was he looking out at the water and like, oh, the other prisoners who made it out? Does he ever find out who made it out? Who knows?
Yeah, and that's one of the kind of this scary, and I guess I don't know, maybe very lived in. I've been saying that this show is Star Wars if the characters didn't have plot armor. This is Cassian makes it not because the stormtroopers can't shoot. He makes it because they shoot the other people first, and it's a second mouse gets the cheese type of situation. And yeah, seeing him come to terms and having that conversation of like, I finally did something she would be proud of, because of their last conversation. I don't know, that was heartbreaking.
Yeah, it really was. I love, since we're talking about him, I love that. I think you just mentioned it a second, Sivas, is the dichotomy between the ending scene of Rogue One with the planet being shot by the Death Star and all. Sorry, hopefully that's not a spoiler for anybody. Hopefully I'm not ruining plot. Sorry if I ruined Rogue One for everybody. My bad. But like that, the ending of Rogue One in this scene, and I didn't realize it until you said that, in that scene where he says goodbye to the other person and the other prisoner leaves, standing there, is overlooking the water. It's the beginning of something. So we're kind of back to the same place, and that it's almost the same exact scene, but in reverse. And I like playing the tape backwards. And I didn't think about that. You said it's a really beautiful way to think about that. We're getting to see the beginning of something, even though the something is going to be, I don't want to say terrible, but it's going to be hard and destructive and all these things. It's still the beginning of almost him as a metaphor for all the other, like you said, Chaco, all the other people in the world, the galaxy, waking up to, oh, this is something we have to do. Yeah, it's a really beautiful way to think about that scene right there.
Yeah. Kier in the chat says, I think Nimic would also be proud of Cassian.
Oh.
I agree. I'm still sticking with my thought that Cassian doesn't read the manifesto until the end of this next episode. And so we begin next season with him having, read all this stuff. But that's going to make him really like solidify his view. At least that's my prediction. So along, and we can't fully talk about Cassian without talking about all the stuff that happened back on Ferrix. And we have, the daughters of Ferrix, and a sinister plot is afoot. Also, the saddest droid scene ever. How? Okay, I mean, lightning round. What is actually the saddest droid scene? I just want to go around real quick and get your guys' feels on this one, because this one particularly hurt me. Like more than the others, more than K2. There's a lot of really sad moments, but this one hit me. How do you guys feel?
I would agree, and I think this one hit me pretty hard too, because we actually get to hear B2 Emo express his grief and his concern for his partner that's no longer there. Hearing him say that he doesn't want to leave because he still wants to wait for her, and hearing him say that he doesn't want to be alone and asks Brasso to stay, that's a whole different level of just emotion and sentientness to this droid that I don't think we've seen in a lot of the other ones. And it really did strike me pretty hard.
B2 needs to be given a hug. That's what go to him. Go to him, Brasso.
Yeah, I can't think of another droid scene in anything that we've seen Star Wars, whether it's comic, a book. I can't think of anything where this is gonna sound, to me, this sounds almost like a terrible way to put this out there, but the best way I can think of it is it was the most human interaction we've seen from a droid, and in a very, this almost childlike way that B2 has, that makes it hurt even more. Because even though it's got the voice of and sort of mannerisms of like an adult, a grown-up droid, that's not real, but like a grown-up droid, it's still sort of, they still sort of behave very dependent and connected to Marva, and it's so hard to watch because B2 does not can't seem to process or accept, but doesn't even know how to process or accept that Marva is just not there anymore. I love that scene, how it opened with, we're seeing through B2's lens, but partially closed, like looked like a sun flare, and I was trying to figure what is that, and then it switches over and we're just basically seeing through his. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is. We get a point of view, but then we're taken out of the point of view, but that way it kind of reinforces the point of view of this partner to Marvin. Oh my gosh, it hurts so bad. It hurts so
bad. For me, the scene where his hand after has passed away, that one is the one that made me cry real time. R2 is there with Princess Leia. I can't with those two scenes being at a close third place, because I was welling up for this one. But I don't know. I might be crazy, but I kind of have Marva, and I think BMO does too. I'm not sure that she's, and if she is, I think she planned something out prior. I'll just leave it at that.
I mean, there is definitely treachery afoot. We can say that, because while they're saying, she's passed and they're talking to B2, and they're gonna bring her body out, B2 keeps going like, Brasso, I'm gonna go with you. Can I go with you? And he's like, no, you need to stay here and help. And it says, the words were B2, the daughters of Ferrix need your assistance in matters of grave importance. That's what he said, and you're like, okay, what?
So you know,
and
what,
also information. I know that it takes a lot, right? So I think that they're kind of refraining from telling him any information that he doesn't need.
Yeah,
Interesting.
keeping him in the dark.
I hadn't thought about it like that. The way that scene played out, what you both are describing, came across very much to me like B2 can't seem to process what is happening, and so they're trying to give him, or he was trying to give him a heroic task, an epic, here's a quest for you, and B2 perked up. But as soon as the daughter walked in and basically said it like it actually is, B2 kind of like all of a sudden kind of clammed back up again. And that's when the two looked at each other, and I think she realized, well, at least the way I saw it is she realized, oh shoot, that's not how you talk to a kid or somebody young in this situation. But I also like the idea that there is some other story element going on here that we haven't seen yet that Marvel put in place, because both things are really interesting to think about.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that, but I do like that as well, because it's like talking about a loved one passing in front of a toddler. He doesn't fully understand it. Q says Ned B from Kenobi, or 3PO mentioning his friends in Rise of Skywalker, or K2 telling Cassian to climb. Star Wars does sad droid moments so well. Also, I gotta pour one out for my boy, Mr. Bones, but that's a deeper cut. So, Mr. Yeah, I love
Mr. Bones.
Mr. Bones is awesome.
All right, so after that, we kind of get a little bit of they decide to allow them to hold the funeral, right? Dedra talks down to the person who's in charge on Ferrix, because he was just not going to budge. And I'm curious because I feel like one of the through lines earlier on was Dedra's rise in kind of this male-dominated field, where these people who are more devoted to trying to raise their own status than get the job done. And I'm curious if y'all read it like I did, where I think he almost thinks he's in a conflict with Dedra, with her forcing him to allow this. And I'm curious because they ask when they bring in Bix, and we can talk about them bringing in Bix and stuff as well. When they bring in Bix, they ask him if she knew the guy. I can't think of his name right now.
Krieger,
yeah, Anto Krieger. Was he supposed to do that? Did Bix respond? And what if Bix's response or lack of response leads them to believe that actually is Access? And so when they take down Anto Krieger, they think they got him. Anyone else read it like that?
Yes, that's exactly what I was.
It like that too.
I didn't even. I don't think I gave it that two thoughts. I just kind of was watching, but that's now I do, now that you mention that.
Well, especially when later the interaction that happens between Saw and Luthen, and they kind of talk through it, and then they talk through that whole situation, and at least that kind of reinforced me. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's what happened here, especially with her saying nothing and just giving the looks the way she. Oh yeah, that was. There's other subtext happening here that I don't know how else to word it. I keep there's something else going on here, but I can't quite put my finger on it, and I'm still not sure if they're just doing this for dramatic effect, which is working. Like, it's very dramatic and it's working, and if there is also an actual plot line that is occurring there that we're just not getting enough of yet, and maybe we'll get a hint of it before the season concludes, or we have to just wait for next time.
I certainly hope not.
Definitely think that off the trail at this point, where they have been, torturing her with those Dazonite, they think, oh, there's no way she's going to be holding anything back now. There's no way she wants to go back in there and deal with that again. So, I think that she is going to name drop and isn't going to mention Lucy. I would hope not.
And she's very clever, and oh man, it broke my heart to see her like that, because
she looked like an She was living off of Dyzonite screams for like a week or something. Terrible.
Yeah.
One of the notes that I wrote down when I was watching the episode was, I hope this isn't true, but one of my first thoughts was, I don't think they're ever going to let Bix go. And then the note I put for myself was, even if they do let her go, or if she's rescued by Andor or somebody else, I'm like, I wonder if they've tortured her into a place that's almost in the 1984 sort of like idea where this person's taken in and tortured and then just let go afterwards because they know that they've altered the person so much they're not going to be a problem for them again. It kind of makes me wonder if something like that's going to happen to her. Like, I can just let you go because we've done so much to your brain that, not that you're a vegetable, but you're just not going to resist anymore. And I don't know. I don't want to think that's the thing. I really hope that she's just playing a part and she walks out of there kind of not scarred, but she's fine and she moves on. But the other way that I read that scene, especially how it opens with her like leaning up against the wall, kind of talking to herself, it very much made me think of like, I think they may have changed her forever at this point, and really worries me for her. I was really scared.
Yeah, I can't see her
Poor
truly being
Gullet.
the same.
She
Yeah, that's true.
he was a little loopy, but he's good. He got the fun.
I thought that was kind of weird because they made it sound like this is gonna destroy your brain, and then like, you know, a couple hours later he's like, "All right, I'm back," and you're like, "Oh, okay, I guess he's fine."
I got the sweat for a little while, and then he was like running around with you guys now on Scarab.
Yeah. What do you think, Casey? Any more thoughts on that?
As far as Bix, I fear for her safety and well-being in the next episode. I think unfortunately Cassian's probably going to have one more tragedy unfold, and I think it might be Bix. Not that I want that to happen because I don't, but I fear for her.
Yeah. So back when we were talking about the droid deaths, St. Pat said, or the anxiety of Leaky being used, looking at you, Chaco. So we played a Star Wars themed, tabletop RPG. It was set in the High Republic. And do you guys remember in the first season of the Bad Batch, we saw a droid that looks like a toddler, had little chubby arms and legs. So there was one of those in our campaign. Its name was Leaky. It was poorly maintained, and so it leaked oil and stuff like that. And in our campaign, set in the High Republic, the Nihil attacked our ship. And my character was alone on a catwalk and came across some Nihil members trying to plant a bomb. And so what I did, because whenever Leaky got excited, he'd shake and kind of spray oil. So what I did is I grabbed him. I was like, "Oh, you're such a good boy." And he got excited and sprayed him. And then I threw him over the railing.
Oh no.
to make an oil slick so I can pull out my gun, and I started picking off some of the now. Leaky was okay.
Oh,
sure.
Leaky got better.
I like that. Leaky got better.
But I will say my plan was so effective that there was one member that no matter how much our DM rolled, he couldn't roll high enough for that character to stand back up again and like get back into the fight. I'm just saying it was very effective. But yeah, that's so they don't trust me around that type of droid anymore, which is fair. Anyways, we jump into the Mon Mothma storyline. This one kind of hurt a little bit, especially when you walk in and you see Lita and she's chanting and it's like, do not want. How do you guys feel about this whole
It was
unfolding?
like, it was almost like very. The only phrase I can come to mind is almost like voluntary Handmaid's Tale. Is how it made me like. I'm like, what? And she's sitting there with a drink watching this happen, and it's like this slow, painful decline into whatever this fanaticism is that her daughter is getting into. And then when I don't want to, sorry, I know both of you probably have things to say, but yeah, I was like, this is gross. This is just gross. That's all I could think of when I saw that.
Yeah, it just Genevieve O'Reilly, the expressions on her face, you could see the horror and just the absolute pain, like just in the eyes alone, just of her watching her daughter kind of be consumed by this. Is it a Chandrilan tradition that they were doing? I believe it was something along those lines. And the fear that she has for herself in that moment, and then also for her daughter, fearing that her daughter might, fall down a similar lifestyle that she has had to endure with Perrin. The whole concept is just really just hard to watch.
Yeah.
Really terrifying in a position of power like Mon Mothma, on the verge of tears at the thought of her joining what she's probably viewing as a cult. And Vel was obviously very perturbed, and their conversation really had Vel. That's why she ended up going to see, she was trying to see Luthen, but she ended up seeing Clea. So desperate, because she's like, oh my goodness, my niece is involved in this now, and she's probably, so my sister can cover up this debt. And it's just a terrible situation.
And what you said about the facial expressions, like the subtleties are so good. When Lita comes out and greets Vel, she shoots daggers at her mom, and you see it hurt Mon Mothma, but she can't do anything about it. So she's a senator. She's the reason they're on Coruscant. She's the reason they have this place and position. She's powerless in every other aspect of her life, even in court, even with her family, and she sees nothing but apathy from her husband, and contempt in a weird traditionalist to a fault from her daughter. It was just painful.
Yeah, and not for nothing, but I think would readily marry her off for money. That's just the vibe that I get from him, and just her father to Mon Mothma. It's just heartbreaking. Like, I know Mon is, and I feel like her father wouldn't really think twice, even though she said that he was more open. I feel really bad that that's straight off by the age of 14. Seems very sad.
It's scary to watch the prison that she lives in, Mon. I mean, even when we see her in the Senate, and we've seen her at Luthen's shop and these other places, primarily we see her in her apartment, and it looks, it's like this very beautiful looking prison, and to I think you're totally right. Watching her daughter voluntarily walk into her own personal prison, thinking this is excited about it, and doesn't like her mom for probably tons of reasons. It's that those looks that she gives Mon don't just come from one thing, obviously, but she's Mon's watching, like you said, Chaka. She's watching her daughter walk into this prison, her own version, not being aware that that's actually what's happening. And like you said, she's powerless to do anything about it. She can't stop what's happening. And among all the other things she has to deal with, that is also, just crushing her.
Yeah, it's hard to watch for sure. And I don't want to go into this, but I probably agree. I can't see Perrin being a very romantic, skilled. I don't know. Anyways, we also got a late night phone call. From our boy Cyril, where he learned a little bit of extra information. I just thought that was funny, but it's nice because we're getting his storyline is kind of the least developed in my opinion, and so he's kind of this like hanging thread, but in this crazy wild card way where he's going to arrive on the scene and you have no idea what he's going to do or and why. How do you guys feel about the news he gets?
I, for one, just was very happy to see I forget his name, but our Scottish policeman back. Not that I'm rooting for him in any way, but he was just funny to watch in the first couple episodes, and I was glad that he made a return. But as far as Cyril, I don't know. I think he's going to do something that he definitely shouldn't be doing in the finale, and I think both, Cassian's friends and Dedra aren't going to want him there, and I think he's going to get caught in a bit of a crossfire. That's my prediction.
Yeah. Personally, I'm kind of predicting that someone is going to have Cassian dead to rights, and he's going to try and get involved to be a hero, and he's going to be responsible for him escaping.
Oh,
yeah. That's a read I get on this as well. That he sees himself as some sort of I guess hero, but he sees himself as this person who's got to step in and do the thing that nobody else seems to willing to do. Although he doesn't realize that he just doesn't have much information, or there's so much more information about what's happening, but he just doesn't know that. And it's not that he's oblivious to it, but like we saw in his interaction, his very creepy interaction with Dedra in the previous episode or past episode, very creepy. Creepy is not even the nicest way I could say that. He's going to do something, and you're right. I think you're right. He's going to do something and put everyone in a situation where either he's going to be the sacrifice play. He thinks he's doing good, and it's just not going to pan out for him. It just crossfire might be a good way to say that.
Burning bridges. Right now he's burning the Britter, who is like one of the only people he has right now, even though she like gives it to him but he stole her credit card. He stole her money, and like he thinks he's just gonna find Cassian sitting in the crowd at his mom's funeral. He's just, I think that he's the character that's just sort of destined to fail. And I agree with you guys that he's probably going to get up actually capturing Cassian.
All right. So, lightning round question: does Cyril die next episode?
I say yes.
I think he's gonna persist. He's too annoying to die.
There's that. I mean, there is that.
That is a good point.
I don't think he's gonna die. Yeah, I think he is gonna be left behind, and left behind in a way that he can't. He wants to continue to interact, but he won't. Like, I don't mean physically, but like emotionally and mentally, and the situation. Like, he's gonna be left behind somehow. Like being stuck on level 331, of course not. But there's no elevator back up. Like that sort of like that kind of like nobody cares, dude. Sorry, nobody actually cares. Like that, almost this way of like it might even cause a break for him. Like originally, I had thought Cyril was going to be one of those people that might come around to the resistance or something, but not in the way of like becomes a good guy and sees the light. I don't mean that, but sort of a finally realizes what's actually happening. But more and more as we get into the stairs, I'm like, no, he's not. I think he's just going to get left behind and finally realize nobody actually cares. Your mom doesn't actually care about you. Whoever this Uncle Harlow is, this creepy Uncle Harlow that they're indebted to, that's the most disturbing thing in the world. Like, I think he's just going to be like, sorry, dude, nobody cares about you anymore.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping in the beginning that Cyril was going to turn out, come around to the rebellion, like I said. But the more he digs his hole deeper, I'm just like no, this dude, he's going to go to the very end. Somebody's going to stop him at some point.
I really like that idea. I think I completely agree with you and his realization that nobody else really kind of cares to the extent that he does, for the certain reasons that he does. For me, I just think that that might all unfold, but he might perish in the end in this pursuit for this almost twisted and ruthless justice. And I think that that pursuit of justice might actually bring the hammer down on himself, with all of what you said as well.
I was starting to lean that way as well. That he's going to be the reason why Cassian escapes. He's going to try to explain it, and then Dedra's just going to pull out a pistol and shoot him on the spot or something like that. Is kind of how I want it to go, because I don't like him. I in the past had thoughts like maybe he'll end up joining, but like there's some things you can't unsee, and like I don't think I want him in the in the Rebel Alliance, like on the barracks being like, don't look at my special box. I don't know if I want that. So either want him to, perish in this, but there is a potential redemption arc if he gets arrested and then gets kind of put into a similar situation that Cassian had to go through, where you're now, or maybe not arrested, but he flees and now he's on the run from the Empire because he did what he thought was right, and it maybe comes around. I guess that's possible. I have Gunganchuan and the chat saying they've invested too much in developing him to kill him off so soon. I think he'll be back next season.
It's a comment that I think Casey just made a second ago that resonated is this is interesting. So Cyril seems to want what he thinks is justice. So he sees this as very, not egalitarian, but like, I'm doing the right thing here. Like Cassian Andor did a bad, and I gotta stop the bad. Like it's just like this very simplistic way of seeing it, and not realizing that the Empire doesn't care about justice at all. They don't. Justice is like the furthest thing from their minds. What they care about is control and suppression. And Choco, you said something a second ago that I think is really interesting, that sorry, excuse me, Deirdre might end up shooting him or something like that, but not because to get him out of the way. It's like, you're trying to get something that I don't care about. The ISB doesn't care about bringing him to justice. We care about suppressing this and coming down hard so others don't try to do the same thing that Cassian and this group got away with. And I think that's I think the place that's going to come into conflict for Cyril is he thinks the Empire is about justice and order and all that, sort of like, Orson Krennic when he says I think when was it Galen says to him, like, I think you're confusing peace with terror, and Krennic says, well, you got to start someplace. Like I think Cyril doesn't realize that's how most of the Empire thinks. And I think, for me at least, I hope that is the conflict that ends up happening for him, is him having to be confronted with, nobody cares about justice, dude.
Yeah. Dang, I like that a lot. I also just, and her shooting him, we already know how casually she's talked about torturing people and killing people. I could see her just shooting him on the spot and being like, I just don't want to deal with this again. If I don't do this now, he might pop up somewhere else, and it's not worth my time. And I would just love to see her lip curl up in disgust right after she did it, because she displays contempt on her face so incredibly well. So yeah, I'm on team. He's gonna die next week. So if y'all want to put $20 on it, never mind, I'm broke. All right, so you go ahead.
I said I'll put 3 calamari.
3 calamari on it. Yeah. All right. So the last thing we kind of have, well, I guess technically we have 2 more things, but we can kind of put them together. Is the discussion all relates to Luthen, right? So we have Luthen's journey into the shop there, we have Luthen's journey into talking with Saw, but we also have what happens at Luthen's shop when he's not there. I'm curious how you guys feel on this last part, and again, I think the acting has been on point, and Luthen is such a cool character, and he's Batman. Apparently, he's lightsaber ship. That's all I'm saying. Thoughts on how badass Luthen is?
He's such an incredibly just complex character, and I love how none of the other characters truly know like who he really is or his full intentions. He's very kept to himself. Like you said, Batman. Like there's such a mystery altogether to everybody else except to himself, and just every single interaction that he has with whoever it is, whether it's Lonnie, the ISB spy plant that he has, or with Saul, every interaction is so intense and fierce, and it's so entertaining to watch. And yes, lightsaber ship, that like it was more than lightsaber ship. Whatever those like dart things that it launched down at that cruiser, that was so cool. I love it.
It was awesome. He seriously took that Mon Mothma money right quick. Make sure nobody ever catches me again.
That scene, specifically the little, like you said, the little rockets or missiles, whatever they fired off to the tractor beam thing, reminded me. I don't know if you all have read the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, and in it when they refer to those little missiles from the Griscav of the Dibbers, it kind of made me think of that a little bit. The note that I wrote for myself about Luthen from this scene was like, you both said, I'll just add my piece, was that we just don't know who he is. Like everyone thinks they know who he is, but they don't. Like I think one of the early episodes we saw him in his ship and we was taking his wig off and whatever, or putting it on. When that thing came down with stuff in it, there was multiples of things in there, which at least for me read like he's got a lot of different personas he can play whenever he needs to. We've only seen the two, the art dealer and then this other Luthen, but we don't even know if that's the real Luthen. Like he's almost like a Skrull in that case. Like I'm just pulling from every fandom right now. Like he's like, but he's like, he just puts on the mask, so to speak, that he needs in the moment to get the thing done that needs to get done. And when he talked to Lonnie about that in the previous episode, like he said it, he's like, I use the tools of my enemy. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get to this place. And I like seeing this layers of Luthen, and I kind of wonder if it's almost like an Escher piece where it's like you're peeling back layers, but you're not really going anywhere. There is no real Luthen anymore. He is just this manifestation of all these personalities over time to reach an end, and I kind of like that about that character.
Yeah, he's just become, I don't know, a blade. I guess. Give me a Luthen origin comic. Where his parents die in an alley after he watched Zorro.
I'm adding that to my poll list.
That there are parallels between the conversation that Luthen had with Lonnie, conversation that Clea had in this episode with Val, where people are just sort of, well, what have you been doing? You're putting me up to all of these missions, and what do you do? And they're like, I've sacrificed my whole life for this. Like, this doesn't end throwing out on one mission, and here I am orchestrating the whole thing for at the very end. So I just really like seeing that, Luthen and Clea are transparent about the fact that we've sacrificed absolutely everything for.
I mean, it reminds me of my time in customer service. Of every person's problem is unique, and she's like, listen, you are not the only person I'm dealing with. You are not the only person that's going to come in here and try to scream at the top of your lungs. And the more you guys do this, the more danger it is for me, because this is my life, and yeah, like you said, the parallels of that is awesome. And I need to know more about Clea as well, because she seems very fascinating.
Her comment was almost say, like, Vel, you're special just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chillin Basic says flechettes. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They were just essentially like metal blades, but you trick them by you launch them, but they probably don't have enough speed to do a lot of damage, which is why he forced them to ramp up their tractor beam, so it gives him extra boost when flying back. And it kind of reminds me of something that Luke did in the Heir to the Empire series, where he had like a freighter that would like break away and his ship inside of it. So they grabbed onto that and then like detonated the ship, and he was able to fly out around it. um Hey, we also have Chris here. But yeah, it was just very, very cool. And also the way he's so utilitarian, where the way he just points out and he's like, that's my informant here. And Saw loses his mind on the spot.
I love how it was two tubes.
Yeah.
That's no reason.
Well, he just owned it too. Like it was. I mean, Saw obviously is worried about that all the time. But even for like Luthen is so convincing and how he does it, like just in a second, that Saw is like, wait, what? Really? Like, oh my god, dude,
He's my guy. He tells me everything.
Yeah,
I love that.
Just tell him. Just why don't you tell him? Oh my god, that was fantastic. That was a fantastic moment.
No,
sorry.
he was. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. Bentek was just making this panicked face, like, no. It was not. It was hilarious.
But the way he was able to, like, he's such a great handler, because he knew exactly what Saw needed to hear in order to understand what was going on, and he gave him that example right on the spot. Like, Luthen is brilliant. Luthen is the Star Wars in this show. Luthen is in Star Wars. Everyone else is getting there, and he's like their vehicle. That's kind of how I'm feeling with it.
Oh yeah, that the way that he as Saw is sort of like reacting or overreacting to the news, and Luthen's like, you need to calm down. Like you're being a little, you're getting upset. You need to calm down. It's like being very like clinical about the situation. And Saw's like, what do you mean? Like, I'm frustrated. I want to be frustrated. Luthen's like, you need to calm down. You need to listen. You need to process. Like, just very. Oh, it was kind of scary to see how unemotional.
He was gentle with Saw. He's like, is that are those the words that I said? No.
Yes, exactly. It's almost like me talking to my 7-year-old. Like it's almost scary how emotionally disconnected he is to be able to do this and do it in that way, especially with somebody like Saw Gerrera, who like literally will kill you on the spot. Like, he doesn't care. He'd kill anybody around if he thought those people were betraying him. Like, he'd just shoot him in a heartbeat. And Luthen's like, he just owns the situation. He's scary good.
But it was very interesting that, like, so shocked with Luthen when he's talking about, you're gonna kill 50? You do that to me? And I'm like, Saw, how many times have you just killed people just giving away information? Even for less, you've killed people. Like, why are you Luthen right now?
Yeah, Saw was tripping. But I mean, when Luthen pulled out the gun, Saw didn't flinch at all, and he's just like, you're not making it out of here alive. And they just have that standoff. It was just seeing these two powerhouse actors contend with each other is just great. But yeah, I mean, I think that largely covers. I have a Gargantuan in the chat says. I think we saw the real Luthen in his first scene with the friendly traveler on the transport. He was trying to laugh but couldn't manage actually being happy. He's just so depressed. And I can see that. That'd be interesting. I do want to actually get to know him, but I think he already knows that his life is forfeit, or who he is as a person. And so he's definitely not making it out of this, because I don't think he has a place in the Republic, once all the chips are down. But I'm curious where he'll end up.
Yeah, I think you're right. I can see him as there is no retirement for him. There's no go sit on a planet, have a cup of tea and watch the sunset. There's none of that. Like his story is written into a like fiery pit of despair, basically. Like he's gonna be tortured, like mentally tortured and anguished forever. And I think he's already come to terms with that. At least that's how I perceive his character. And as a result, he's like, well, since that's going to happen, I might as well make the most of it while I'm here. Is kind of, but almost like to the too much of a degree. Like I will burn everything along the way as I'm going. It's kind of I'm gonna salt the fields as I finish doing all this stuff too. He's a little intense about it all.
He's gonna take his ball and go home. But yeah, so that pretty much covers the entire episode. I want to thank you guys all for coming out, hanging out with me for this hour, and kind of diving into it, because I always get way more out of these. These discussions always make me more pumped for next week, because that's how I have all these different thoughts and ideas from bouncing off of you guys. I do want to go around one more time just to see if you guys have any final thoughts, any things that we missed. Any things that you guys are doing that you want to plug, and once again, let us know where we can find you and your awesome content. And I will go with General Skivas first.
Oh, sorry. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok though. Final thoughts. This was, I mean, I was pretty floored with last week's episode. Keep on upping the game every single time. I'm very, very, very pleased. Pretty much covered everything that I was very, very excited about. I think the thing that really stood out to me was definitely Luthen's ship. Those modifications were excellent.
So freaking cool. Straight out of Iron Man 2. I was like, should lead with that next time. And how about you, Jeff?
So I guess my final thought on this episode, but on the show in general, is this is Star Wars that I love. I mean, I love all Star Wars. I had some High Republic stuff sitting next to me. Like I love every aspect of it, making cosplay, like all this, but this show encapsulates what I really love about Star Wars, which is the humanity of dealing with real problems. Because we even though this is fantastical, it's also not, and we can really all of us can see ourselves and our own personal struggles and the struggles in our world. I don't mean it's allegorical, but it's analogous to things that we all deal with, and I love that because I love the Space Wizard stuff. I do. Jedi stuff is fantastic. I love it. It makes me so happy. But the humanity in this show really gives you a chance to rethink things going on in your own life. I don't mean to change things, just rethink about what happens, and I really appreciate that about this particular show. I'm loving Andor. But yeah, you can find me on pretty much all the socials. I'm usually at Jeff Bull Tech on everything. On TikTok, I'm JB the Jedi. And then I also co-host a Star Wars live stream, funny enough, called The Kessel Chat. You can find us on YouTube. YouTube.com/The Kessel Chat. We record live every Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific.
Awesome. Beautiful. And last but not least, we have Casey.
I don't know why this popped into my head, but the one thing that I love so much about the show is the serious, intense interactions between characters, like what we had with Luthen and Saw. And just looking forward to season 2 after this finale, imagining a similar level of intensity, conversation, dialogue between like one of the Mon Calamari leaders, whether it's Akbar or Radis, with whether Luthen's still around or if it's Mon Mothma or Saw. That's something I would love to see happen in like the second season. But thank you so much for having me. My name's Casey, or on TikTok is where I primarily reside. Swacer_1977 and Swacer1977 everywhere else.
Awesome. Yeah, absolute blast to be able to hang out and chat with you guys. For me, I still think I don't even know what else can be said about the show. It's just one of my favorite Star Wars books is Lost Stars. And it's kind of, takes you behind the scenes of Star Wars, of the original trilogy. You get to see it from a different perspective. And there's some like funny parts, and it's still, it's definitely a YA book. But there's certain parts where they're talking about what it was like to be standing on the Death Star when it blew up Alderaan, and how they felt. And you're like, I never considered this behind the scenes type of thing. Or they look at Tarkin like he's a kindly old grandpa, which freaks me out quite a bit. Or in Return of the Jedi, when they're assigning the mission, these are rebels who are like, so we're just gonna put all these missions in the hands of these like random people that just made general, like, who are and it's funny because regular Star Wars again has all the plot armor, has all the camp, has all the swashbuckling, and then this is Star Wars without that, where these people are in the mud and they're grinding hard just so that when the time comes, Luke Skywalker can show up one day, save the princess, and then the next day blow up the Death Star and then be a hero to the whole galaxy because of, I don't know, space wizard nepotism. But it's really cool to see the other side of it, and the grassroots nature and what it's like for everyone else in the universe. But anyways, once again, thank you guys for joining, everyone in the chat, for hanging out. Gargantuan, St. Pat, Christopher Lanzan, Sanji, chilling in the basement, Cal Forer, we had Kiermanda, we had Dixon Download, Johnsky, lots of people. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. And yeah, we will see y'all again next week after the finale.
Awesome.
Have a good one, and may the force be with you.
May the force be with you.